swiping through dating apps together. So on this episode of Mini Kids, I got a
Kamu
little
tolong
swipe
kak?
connection.
Tolong apa?
Buat sushi.
Boleh, Mek?
Kamu saya tolong satu lama?
Iyalah, kau boleh buat. Marilah.
Udah.
Ambil sarung tangan. Kakak buat satu, kau buat lain, nah.
Mana kak?
Di kontainer tuh. Di kontainer dekat garam-garam tuh. Nampak? Marilah. Cepat sayang, kau mau balik sudah tuh. Dia mau makan, mau pergi kerja lagi. Saya buat satu. Tolong ambil kakak piring besar satu dulu, yang hijau di
Hijau?
situ, yang di situ tuh tapi paling besar. Kau tolong gulung kakak pergi steam apa dulu, fishball dulu. Tidak tahu mau balik pukul berapa.
Oh, ke video kak? Ke video kak? Tidak mau di dalam video kak?
Marilah. Jangan besar, kecil-kecil begini.
Sorry, aku juga mana satu mau simpan semua.
Iyalah. Nah, saya tambah nasi dulu. Ini saya.
Tidak, saya buka musik.
If not the most epic, intense, action-packed scene in all of One Piece. I mean, we call it the Marineford War or the Paramount War of the Best. Not really so much of a war as it was just a massive, just fuck-off battle. But man, was this intense, okay? You have Whitebeard, one of the 4 emperors gathering together, not just his pirate crew, which is in of itself huge with all these division commanders, but then all of his allies from the New World coming together to try to rescue Ace from the Marines. And then you have the Marines who have gathered together all of the vice admirals, all of the admirals, the fleet admirals, Sengoku's there, all of their soldiers, giant squadron. It's like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. And Oda was foreshadowing this, you know, hundreds of chapters beforehand. Like in between arcs, we had like the murmurings of something big's gonna happen. You know, like you had Shanks sending a messenger to Whitebeard. That's when we first see Whitebeard, this massive dude sitting on his ship, hooked up to all this medical equipment, chugging down sake out of freaking like oil drums, just glug glug glug. And then we understand something big's gonna happen. Ace gets captured by Blackbeard, and like, ooh, it's gonna be nuts. Okay. Now, this is a good way to set up a battle, because there's no easy answer to this. It could go either way. Going into Marineford, I don't know if you were reading One Piece back then, because that was a while back. That was probably like, I started reading One Piece like weekly, like on like through like manga websites back during 2008, when I was a sophomore in high school, and that was right around the Impel Down arc, if I'm remembering correctly. So I got into it like right when Marineford was gearing up. But going into it, like reading it weekly, you know, on a weekly basis, you could go either way. Be like, Whitebeard, I could totally see him coming through and winning this. He has all these ships and everyone backing him. And again, you could also see the Marines winning, because this is their home turf, and they got the admirals, which we didn't really know a lot about back then. Of course, as we know now, it resulted in the Marines' victory. You know, sorry, spoiler alert. Oh, by the way, Ace gets fisted. But it's one of those things, man. where even going back and watching the episodes again and reading those chapters of the manga again, which I have done recently because they have the digitally colored comics, which, by the way, I would recommend go back and read them again just because the digitally colored manga just makes everything seem a little bit more vibrant and alive. It's like you're reading it on a whole new experience, you know, because you notice things in the background you didn't before because everything's in color now. But going back and rereading it, I really felt genuinely bad because I'm looking at this and I'm like, this was so neck and neck. You really didn't know how it was going to go down. It is kind of a shame that knowing what was going to happen, knowing that this was going to be a defeat for Whitebeard, knowing that he brought all of this stuff to the table, and it's going to result in him failing to save Ace, and then it's going to result in Whitebeard's death. Not just his death, but his death by one of his own former crewmates. Not just his death by one of his own former crewmates, but the theft of his devil fruit, the Gura Gura no Mi, by that said crewmate that killed another member of his own crew. So it's like reading this like, man, Whitebeard brought out the guns. He went at this 157%, and it still wasn't enough. And so I thought this would be a perfect what-if scenario to lay it all out. Let's say the big man managed to come through. Whitebeard won at Marineford. His pirate crew and all the other pirate crews he allied with, they storm in, and yeah, there's still heavy casualties, but they managed to rescue Ace and get him back with his crewmates. Whitebeard managed to come out of it alive too. He doesn't get killed by Blackbeard. Blackbeard doesn't steal the Gura Gura no Mi. Luffy, Jinbei, everybody manages to get away. How would that affect the story now? How would things be different if things would have went that way? Kind of the way that the fandom, I'm sure none of the fandom was rooting for the Marines to win. Yeah, you go Marines, you freaking execute Ace. He's a pirate, he deserves to die. It's not as simple as just saying, Ace doesn't get executed by a Kainu, or Whitebeard doesn't get shot by Blackbeard. There's other things that are going on during Marineford that, you have to kind of adjust to see how this would go down. For instance, the whole Blackbeard being present. He kind of throws a monkey wrench into this whole thing, because it's not a straight up fight between Whitebeard and Marines, because Blackbeard's kind of in the background waiting to steal his power. But we all know that a prerequisite for Blackbeard stealing the power of the Gura Gura no Mi means that Whitebeard has to die first. I think that was a prerequisite for him to achieve this power, Whitebeard's passing, right? So if, for the sake of this argument, we're going to say that Whitebeard never dies at Marineford. He doesn't get riddled with bullets. He still takes quite a bit of damage. We're not changing it to be like a 100% sweeping victory. There's still a lot of casualties on Whitebeard's side. There's still a lot of injuries that he's suffered. He still gets stabbed by Squirto. He still takes all the hits. It's just the injuries that directly killed him, like Blackbeard's entire crew whipping out a bunch of guns and just unloading into him. That doesn't occur. So let's say Blackbeard maybe chooses to bide his time and wait a little bit longer to enact his plan. He might still have the idea to go after Whitebeard or Whitebeard's crew or whatever, to go after Gura Gura no Mi or go after other strong Devil Fruit users. That's another thing too. We could say Blackbeard, instead of deciding to go after the Gura Gura no Mi, decided to go after another fruit, like Big Mom's Soul Fruit, which would be another very interesting Paramecia type devil fruit to have. We could go along those lines here. But, yeah. So let's say they do it. Let's say they rescue Ace from the scaffolding, and they manage to get him away from Akainu, because the whole thing is they were getting away. Ace was about to get away when Akainu started, spewing the freaking shit from his mouth, Whitebeard's a washed up old has-been, and then that's when Ace got pissed and turned back and decided to fight against Akainu, basically signing his own death warrant with that. But let's say in this scenario, things work out a little differently. They manage to knock Akainu back or something of that nature, and Ace never gets provoked. So Ace, and by extension, this also means Luffy is not caught up in the attack as well. So, of course, Luffy doesn't get the scar on his chest. He doesn't get, the whole reason he was knocked out for the latter half of the battle was because the Ace died, and that shocked him, that traumatized him to the point where he passed out. So Luffy and Ace, they just get away. They manage to to, and Jinbei as well, they managed to get back onto the ship with the other members of the Whitebeard pirates. And at that point, Whitebeard's not an idiot. Whitebeard's not going to be sitting there like, all right, men, we rescued Ace. Now pound the Marines into the ground. No, Whitebeard's a smart dude, okay? He went there to rescue his son, Ace. He managed it. He's not going to be sticking around longer than he has to. He's going to get going. So let's just, and I understand that one of the reasons why Whitebeard did kind of stand his ground was because he figured he was going to die, but this is a scenario where he lives. So let's say that he does still take a significant amount of damage here, but with the fact that Ace is rescued and everything goes a little bit more smoothly than it did in the normal timeline, he decides to pull back to maybe with some coaxing from Marco or maybe Ace himself. You know, maybe Whitebeard still wants to do like, I'm still going to stay here, I'm going to do this to let my sons get away. But then Ace comes up and just like, you rescued me, Pops, come on, let's get out of here, we're almost done, we're winning. And Whitebeard looks around and he sees that the Marines are getting pushed back, he sees that his side is very clearly dominant, and Whitebeard realizes that maybe you could even, because in the original it was, he has like a flashback with Roger, you know, the last meeting he had with Roger about Raftel and the Will of D and everything. Maybe he still has a variation of that flashback, and maybe he sees like a ghostly image of Roger in front of him. It's like, it ain't your time to die yet, you know, you old coot or something. And Whitebeard looks around and he's just like, you know what, you're right, Ace, we can go, we can win, we can get out of here and everything can be fine. So then he decides to leave with his crew. And they manage to get away. Maybe the other pirate crews that were with them, like Whitey Bay or the Thunder dude, you know, they all managed, the Caterpillar dude, they all managed to run interference to allow the Whitebeard pirates to escape Marineford. And it's just like the exact opposite, you know, it's just a crushing defeat for the Marines. You have a situation where the admirals failed, you had a situation where you have Sengoku in the background like, oh god, why did this have to happen? And this was the worst part of this, is that word's going to spread around about this scenario. People are going to find out about this, the situation that went down. There were visual transponder snails there that witnessed, you know, here's the death of Whitebeard and everybody. You know, there's going to be one or two people, you know, that have these things that are, the world's going to know about this crushing defeat that the Marines suffered. So hold back, we're going to cut back to that later, but just to let you know that in the public eye, this is terrifying. This is like apocalypse level crap. This is like, oh, the Marines just got crushed by one of these pirate crews, these emperors. This is not good.
This is me, Fairy Lady at Wangsheng Funeral Parlor. No one of importance. This gentleman beside me is our most knowledgeable consultant, Mr. Zhongli.
This Noctilucous jade is small, but a beautiful shade of translucent blue. It would be a shame not to buy it.
Yes, sir.
Pasting a windwheel aster to wet glaze before it is fired in the kiln? Fascinating. The flower turns to ash, but its shape is forever retained. Such genius. It would be a pity to not purchase this.
Yes, sir.
Core lapis is itself hard to gather. It must have taken true skill indeed to unearth two pieces so alike. We should buy them.
Yes, sir. A fine Noctilucous jade, artisan porcelain, and a pair of core lapis, and a windwheel aster as a gift for the fairy lady. Yes, he even got me a gift. Mr. Zhongli truly is an amazing person.
When Xiongling is cooking, it would be far more appealing to go to Wanmin Restaurant as opposed to Sinuer Kiosk or Lioli Pavilion.
I'm fine with anything so long as it's good. But do they only have chopsticks?
You will need to be adept with chopsticks if you are to truly appreciate Leo's gastronomy.
Mr. Zhongli, we have spring-bell boar on the menu today. Would you like to try it instead of the salt and pepper tofu? In accordance with Snezhnaya customs, we gave Xiongling a tip for her amazing new dish. Mr. Zhongli values friendly ties of Amura and is generous in word and deed. Well, the Wangsheng Funeral Parlor often foots the cost of his generosity. But thankfully, the Northland Bank is bearing this particular bill.
Welcome, come in. Excluding this pair of hairpins, everything else is for sale.
They're not for sale. Why not?
These are